Hello, Nourdine. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation here.
Hello, Stan. Thank you.
For nearly 2 years now, you have been the CEO of Konecta, one of the global leaders in customer experience and digital services. Before that, you had a long, successful career at Atos, where you spent 23 years and ultimately served as CEO. Today, we would love to hear about your journey as Konecta CEO in a context of intense transformation and listen to your views on the hot topic of European competitiveness. But first, Konecta. What is it exactly and what does it stand for?
Konecta is a fantastic company. It started 25 years ago as a spin-off of Banco Santander call center operation, headquartered in Madrid. And today it's the number 5 worldwide of that fantastic industry. We are billing a little bit more than 2 billion a year over 26 countries.
Next, I would like to ask a simple question. Why? Customer experience is one of the most impacted sectors by AI. Why did you choose to take on the leadership of Konecta in this very special context?
Normally for you, it should be clear. You know that I love challenges and I love burning platform. The reality, after navigating a listed company for many years, I wanted to move to another industry and especially to a non-listed company to align a little bit more the governance and the objective of the entire company. And I think Konecta was hitting several marks of it. First, it's privately owned, as you know, a little bit more than 80% from ICG, our private fund. The rest is owned by the management and the founders. Second, it is headquartered in Madrid. And as you know, my family, after relocating in many countries, has decided to settle in Spain. So founding a company headquartered in Madrid was an important topic for me to rebalance personal life and professional life. And third, I wanted to find a company where I could fully leverage my technological skills. And what better 2 years ago than a customer-sakes environment, which is totally disrupted by the AI and especially at that time by the Gen AI popping up and redefining that industry. So I really wanted to join this kind of company and help them preparing for the next phase of that hybrid model.
When you arrived, you initiated a major transformation of the company. Can you help us understand what guided that decision and how you structure and led the transformation so far?
As I was mentioning, the company needed some new chapter, a new step into that technological world where the services were becoming more and more blended with technology, not only human-based, seat-based, but more and more technology-based. Yeah. So after like 3 months of assessment, as you usually do when you take a new job, I think it was clear. Konecta employees, Konecta customers were looking for something else. That AI wave, which was really drilling on everybody, needed a new answer, needed a new portfolio, and needed a new blood. So what we did with Katalyst that we launched, it was really a 3-year plan and leveraging 3 main pillars. First, we decided to not wait for any renewal, not wait for the customer raising their hand, but start disrupting our own operation by infusing AI across the board. For that, as you know, we worked closely with your team to go and disrupt our own operation with AI, sometimes aligned with the customer processes, sometimes on our internal processes. Second, what we saw during that phase is the customer are looking for a one-stop shop for that last mile. As you know, you could deploy AI, but the entire difficulty of making it real and getting the return of investment happen in that high touch that you make at the last mile. So here I needed to bring more capacity, more digital capability to Konecta. So here we opened a new global talent hub in Egypt, in India. We started structuring digital units across the board to bring together more digital capabilities that will be able to take the customer end-to-end from that consulting, co-workshop, co-design of the transformation until the implementation where here the client are getting the return of investment. And last but not least, Konecta being number 5 was heavily present in Southern Europe and in Latin America. But the reality, 50% of the potential of this industry, including digital, is happening in the English-speaking market, i.e. the US. So we needed also to take our fair market share of that US market.
You are a front runner in AI and in AI implementation. What piece of advice would you give a CEO that is contemplating such a journey?
I think the one without any doubt is execution. Stop wasting your time in trying to do analysis. I will even say sometimes, don't focus too much on ROI. Just get the team using it, implementing it, going through all that journey of friction, because it is a journey of friction, to be able to get to the implementation and then see the real value. Because success breeds success. Once you have implemented once and there is a winning team, everybody will try to replicate. And the reality, when you are into that implementation journey, you will face many, what we call today, depths. Technological depths. Yeah, your legacy technological stack will be a hurdle. Second, data depth. A lot of companies have made up their digital transformation, but the reality, they just put a lipstick on a pig. The misery behind the scene of their data governance is horrible. And we see it. AI could be as relevant as your data is updated and accurate. Then we are facing more and more today, and I really believe the next 2 years will be all about workflow and processes, the process depth. A lot of processes in the companies, especially when they are cross-silo, they are not mastered by one. They are not operated by one. And when you have to change them and infuse technology, you need to bring various stakeholders to the table, and then you get to the organizational depth, where here is really a nightmare to get the one person accountable to redefine the process and the organization around the processes. So first advice, execution. You will not make the difference in your offering, in your marketing. You will make the difference in how many use cases have you really implemented. Second, without doubt, get your team trained, educated. I think in Katalyst, we invested several millions in training our employees, giving them models just to improve their basic office productivity as a first step, and then giving them tools to accelerate the delivery of their work. And I think that's really important because, resistance to the change is pretty common in those kind of processes, especially when there is new technology. So training our people has been key and is key, and we continue investing into it. Third, keep an eye on what's coming next. This technology disruption is not just about one chapter. There are several chapters in that technology. We move from basic LLM models with initial ChatGPT to really performing large language model. But then those large language models become small language models, become open source language model that you could leverage. Now we are talking about agentic, so now agent having autonomous capabilities to be able to handle processes end to end. So this technology is a way that you need to ride, and to stay ahead, you need to be on the lookout.
You talked about driving usage, and I understand the power of exemplarity. What do you use as a CEO in terms of AI tools?
Several, I will say. I think for the deep reports analysis, I'm often using, we are a Google shop, so we are using Gemini Enterprise inside Konecta, and it helped me a lot in a lot of analysis and getting easily access to much more thought reports. Yeah, I'm using often Perplexity when I need to go a little bit more deeper into market intelligence, market analysis, sometimes even from M&A, when you need to do a due diligence and you have hundreds of reports, loading them and trying to extract directly the information you need is pretty often. So it's more in the search and generation of reports. I will maybe on the personal side just add, I'm using some of them. The reality is we have kids, small kids. Sometimes you need to train them for the test, for the exam. I'm a lazy father in that case. I'm often using some of them to generate some tests and be able to help them with that. That's the truth.
I can relate to the kids part of the story. But what about the core business? Could you give us one concrete example where you deployed AI solutions to transform the way you operate?
So let me deep dive on one concrete, because it's a real case that we are operating right now. We are delivering, obviously, client experience to one of our food retailer. And that kind of industry is often working through waves, depending if you have a soccer game just before Champions League or whatever. Saturday night you have some peaks. So it's really hard in terms of workforce management, planning the right amount of agent to be on depending on the success of the night or the event of the night, and if it is raining or not, and all of that. So it was clearly a use case where we wanted to try to normalize the workforce planning and leverage technology to avoid not delivering the right services. So it started initially as a voice AI project, which means creating a bot that could handle the peaks of calls, handle directly the peaks of calls, and be able to take the order. But when we started working with a customer, from a bot with the right language, with the right accent, having access to the right offering of a moment of a food retailer, we started saying, okay, let's transform that into an agentic project. So this bot will take the order, but we launched as well into our kitchens the preparation of a food. In that case, it was pizza. We'll plan depending on the location, depending on which type of kitchens, the capacity planning of all those kitchens. We launch the preparation of a pizza directly, and then we'll as well schedule the delivery. And as you know, it's pretty complex logistic, but we'll schedule the delivery. And more recently, as you know, last fall, we finally have a protocol that exists that enable an agent to transact financially with agent to payment protocol that transacts financially in operation. And then we added that last mile, which the agentic, the voice bot, the voice AI in the beginning is able now to transact financially the operation. And all of that is a pretty complex process, is a pretty important process. We have been able to integrate it into the technology stack of a customer, being able to, at the same time, secure it, because as you know, as soon as you give autonomous power to agent, you need to make sure that it is within some guardrails. And then change as well the commercial model, because all of that will not be okay for us if the commercial model doesn't evolve. And we change it from an FTE-based model to an outcome-based model. So here, what we agreed with the customer, it was a co-investment and a co-definition of that entire solution, is we will just take a percentage of each transaction, and that's the way we have evolved the project with them.
How would you describe the benefit?
For the customer, let's say I think we have been able to cut the cost for them by almost 40%. And for us, we have been able to expand our own margin, obviously. Now technology is helping us, and we're just keeping the human in the loop only for those premium services, only for those escalation call, complex situation. Here you get out directly from the agentic framework, and you have a core team which is here 24/7 to support the customer.
Interesting example of an end-to-end hybrid agentic model. You mentioned the word disruption, and you have a stance on the AI topic that is quite different from what we read in the press. You essentially argue that AI is an opportunity for CX players. Can you tell us more about that?
I think that stance was maybe different 2 years ago. Now, a lot of people are recognizing the opportunity of AI. The reality, before even joining Konecta, what I was envisioning and what I was foreseeing with AI is really a full disruption of the entire service industry. Not only CX, but as well IT, but as well consulting firm. Everybody will have to redefine what will be the new service model with that AI and especially agentic come into play. So I think from the beginning I was viewing that as an opportunity, and I was a strong believer of a convergence of various service industry into one. And we have several proof today that everybody is going toward the same kind of offering and portfolio. And I think within that, I believed strongly that if we were able to ride the wave a little bit in advance than the rest of the competitor, we will be part of a winner. And especially mixing the domain expertise coming from many years of operating the client experience of many customers with digital capability, architectural capability, system integration capability that will enable us to be that one-stop shop for that last mile for our customer. And that's really what build that strong religion that I'm pushing through Katalyst.
Going beyond your role at Konecta, you're also a committed leader. You chair Les Entretiens de l'Excellence, a non-profit fighting inequalities in access to education. How does that shape your role as a leader?
I think it takes it comes more from the root of that is often your own personal experience. No? Social mobility is not a myth. The reality is you plan it, you structure it, and often you also need a network around you. This is what I discovered in my own career, pretty young. You need people that trust in you, and you need people that give you access to information and give you access to options. So, les entretiens de l'excellence, what we are doing, almost, I will say, 40 Saturday per year. We are getting kids from college, from high school together. Think about 500 to 600 every Saturday across France, and giving them options, giving them testimonies of career, different type of career, and sometimes it's a cop coming and sharing its experience, a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, a tech guy, a marketing lady, an HR person. So we are giving them options on all the jobs and the potential career, but more than that, we're helping them building a network with teachers, building a network with professionals, which give them an option. I think often what we see is when you are not coming from I will say, the right environment, you don't believe in yourself. That's point number one. You don't believe that you could do it alone. And often you don't know all the options you have at hand. And I think that was what driving that entretien des excellences. I'm pushing it as a leader because more and more, and especially when I'm getting closer to my 50 now, I believe success is not finished until you give back. Your career is not finished until you give back. So that step, you need to plan it in your career, and you need to start, especially when you're in the second phase of your career, you need to start sharing it internally with your talents, helping talents growing, grooming them into that complex corporate world sometimes, but as well outside. I think there are a lot of kids that will enjoy just understanding how you made the choice, for example, to end up in BCG, and what drive you toward your career to choose that kind of path versus another one. And last but not least, I think there is still a huge pressure in our society on failure. And we need to put our kids at ease with failure. We need to help them understanding that it's not the end of the world. Between 20 and 30 years old, you have all the time of the world to test and fail, but enjoy it. And I think here, it's also part of les entretiens de l'excellence. We help them managing those uncomfortable positions to make sure that they rebound and they never stayed in that failed stage.
Could Konecta be an accelerator for them?
Of course. I'm taking a lot of interns.
I would like to switch gears a little bit and discuss the hot topic of European competitiveness. The Draghi Report underlined a number of shortcomings that Europe is facing in its fights for a meaningful position in the new world order. Among those shortcomings, tech is high on the list, and AI is identified as one area where we lack champions. So what can Europe do about it, and how can companies help?
Well, I have been saying that for long now, but I think first we need to get out of a meta-narrative, which is all about the language model and the large language model and all the funds and the attention, the interest going to it. I think we are past that stage. We saw it, and we saw several disruption with open source model, disruption with even really cheap model, that needs less GPU, less computing than the big ones, and that have been able to achieve really impressive results. So I think Europe needs to close that chapter. We were not part of it, and I don't think we need to be part of it. There are several alternatives. You go on Hugging Face, you have more than 30,000 language model available, a lot of them open source, with almost the same performance than some of the most expensive commercial ones, and that could do the job. And I really think where Europe will make the difference is a little bit what Asia is doing, is really in the application of AI. I think the real value of AI comes, as we mentioned, when you implement it into that last mile. You implement it in healthcare, when you implement it in public sector, in manufacturing, in retail, in finance industry, when it is really in action, and especially now with agentic, this is where we will make the difference. And I think to be able to shift toward more that application of AI than just building the model of AI, we need more capitals. We need more interest. We need more structures. We need more enabler, even in terms of policies, European policies, to help us build in the champion of AI application of tomorrow. And I think here Europe, especially I would say with my French background as well, we have been always excelling in working in the constrained environment. And I think we need to accept that this environment now is being constrained. We will not be able to leverage always the American technology or the Asian technology, and we need to redefine what is that constraint framework and how our engineers need to accelerate solving those constraints. And this is why I believe Europe has a lot to say and a lot to do, and we have fantastic champions like Konecta.
And you also suggested, I think, financing those who make it happen over those who storytell. Is that right?
Exactly. We need that to become real now.
Your company is global, and it is, you mentioned it, headquartered in Spain. Spain has had a very interesting trajectory over the last few years. After a period of turmoil, it is now growing at fast pace and transforming rapidly. What can other countries learn from that experience?
A lot, especially when you look at the latest result. I think GDP of Spain from last year will be almost double than the European average. I think from my point of view, and I don't want to be exhaustive here, but I see really three main reasons where Spain has been protected and has been able to exit pretty strong. Yeah. First, workforce, labor, and especially immigration. They have been able to integrate a lot of immigrant workforce into their economy much faster, much easier than a lot of the rest of Europe. And that has obviously helped them fill in the missing spots, but has been also stemming the demand. And all of that is a positive circle, as you know. They have been able, through consumption, to be able to bring more GDP to their country. So I think their social model, especially in terms of integration, has been a little bit at the opposite of the mainstream that we see across Europe, but is one of the foundations of how their GDP is becoming stronger and stronger. Second one, this one is a little bit more rooted in the past. I think they put a kind of energy cap, and that has helped them mitigating the impact when the Ukrainian war started. For example, they have been much more protected by the huge increase of utility price versus a country like Germany. That helped the economy sustaining, I will say, the rest of the business. And maybe third one, as you know, Spain has been always known for a strong tourism. And what I saw since Brexit, they have been invested in a little bit in a higher value or more expensive tourism, putting in place some attractive packages. And you see in some region of Spain, the average spent by tourists has increased by more than 25% over the last 2 years. So that's also fueling. So I don't think it's only one thing, but we have been able to aggregate several initiatives which put them much more ahead than the rest of Europe. And I'm really proud seeing it living directly in Madrid.
Some say there is also a strategic component of directing investments to infrastructure and things that matter for the long term to make the country work at higher metabolic rates.
And there are some of that, and it's true that they have been pretty efficient in capturing the European fund post-COVID, and compared to other countries that were dying in the red tape, Spain get their stuff in order to make it happen faster, and that gives them a higher percentage of those funds, which, like you said, help them boosting the infrastructure investment.
Thank you, Nourdine. A final question to conclude. What's next for you and what's next for Konecta?
What's next for me is Konecta, and it's especially Konecta into the second phase. Yeah, I think what we did in Katalyst, we built that first digital foundation that the company needed, but now we need to accelerate on those vertical use cases. And we are launching our platform this year, you will see, where we are going to aggregate all those vertical use cases, some of them that we developed with you, by the way. And second, I think really where I see Konecta now is really taking a stronger step in those expanding markets. We were talking about Middle East and also English-speaking market. I think that will be important. And third, continuing training and transforming talent of Konecta, because I really believe in that hybrid technological player that will be part of the winners.
Thank you, Nourdine, and all the best for your onwards and upwards journey at Konecta.
Thank you, Stan.